Husband started sleeping with my mom 4 months after our wedding, blamed me for my dad's th. Then they said they're in love and want to start a family. I, 21F, have been married to my husband, 33M, for a year and 3 months now. We got together when I was 18 and he was 30 while I was a senior in high school. To a lot of people our relationship is taboo, however, I've always been very mature for my age and it's always felt normal to both of us. My mother, 40F, has always had a soft spot for him which I appreciated. When she first met him, she told me I was so lucky to have an amazing person in my life. Throughout our relationship my mom and I got along fine, which I've always thought may just be from their somewhat closeness in age. However, during our wedding is when I started noticing weird behavior from my mom. On my wedding day, she told me she wished she was Theon in the gown today, referring to my wedding dress. I asked her what she meant and she just started laughing saying she said too much to drink. She also suggested her and my husband have a dance together during my wedding. I immediately laughed because I thought it was a joke, however, now of the current circumstances, it was clearly not a joke. Further down the line she would start asking me how he was in bed. I told her I didn't feel comfortable talking to her about that and she said that my aunt was curious. She also started asking my husband sexual questions like what was his favorite position. What are his kinks? If he had ever had a threesome. Genuinely uncomfortable questions that made me grossed out. My suspicions specifically grew throughout the last 3 months. My husband told me my mom asked him to renovate her kitchen. He works in construction and he would be over there after work Monday to Wednesday. When I offered to join him he said it wasn't necessary, and that it would boring for me. When I asked my mom if I should join as well she said I was being a nagging wife asking. However, when he started to visit my mom I noticed sexual changes in our relationship as, when he would come home from work or my mom's he would never be interested in doing it. My suspicions grew further when I visited my mom's place, and the kitchen looked the same as before and, when I confronted both of them, they said they were still just prepping for the renovation. In this moment I knew something was wrong. I had an urge to know so I left work early, and decided to go by my mom's place, and see what was happening. What I arrived I wanted to see, what they were up to naturally and didn't want them to be alarmed that I was there. Luckily my mom's place has a lot of windows and you can see nearly every room in the house if you just wander around. When I got to the studious window that's when I saw my husband and mother having sex on her desk. I screamed and cried. When they saw me my mom looked down, in complete disbelief while my husband ran out of the room. I wasn't there long, but ran to my car, and drove off hyperventilating. When I got home I just started to pack some clothes and essentials and wanted to leave. I drove off and my phone started blowing up from my husband, mother and auntie, assuming she knew. I drove to an empty car park, and sat there for over 4 hours just crying, and listening to music. I decided to return to my husband, and I's home as the tears I let go turned into complete anger and distrust. I wanted to confront him. When I arrived home, he was not there, and there was also no sign he had even been at our place. I decided that I needed some sleep, and thought that Mape had just stayed in a motel for the night to give me space. When I woke up the next day I was going to call him, however I thought to myself that I wasn't ready to speak to him. So I called back my auntie and she told me that he stayed over at my mother's house to be there for her. My mouth dropped and I couldn't even say a single word. My auntie had to keep asking if I was there. I told her if she could set up a meeting with myself, husband and my mother, and she said she'll pick me up and take me to my mom's house to talk. When my auntie picked me up she said that my mother told her about Prefair and she told her to stop. My mother lied to her saying she had, and yesterday straight after I caught them she said my mother told her she'd been still seeing him, and that I'd found out. I told my auntie I was disappointed she didn't tell me, and that she's lost my trust, and she seemed to have understood that and complied. When we got to their house, my husband had his arm around my mother while she had her head rested on his shoulder. Keep in mind, I caught them a girl. My mother started crying as soon as she saw me, and started hugging my husband. The tint itself aggravated me. To keep this from not going any longer, they told me that they want Tobe together, and they hope one day I'll accept them. I literally couldn't even feel anything, so I just started laughing in shock. Even my auntie told my mom she was being ridiculous. They claim that they've been in love for a year now, and they started sleeping with each other 4 months after my husband and I got married. The craziest claim was that my mother said she sees herself starting a family with him. After they told me everything I sat in silence for a few minutes, and I asked my auntie in that moment to take me home, and she got her keys and got me out of there immediately. As soon as I got in the car she hugged me and I started bawling. She said everything was going to be okay and that she was there for me, no matter what. She offered that I stay with her, but I just wanted to be alone. It's been a week since that all happened and I've been at home alone just crying and drinking. I even had some really dark thoughts that honestly terrified me to the point I was going to touch myself to the hospital. The worst part is that a part of me wishes I never saw them, and live completely oblivious to their affair. I don't have any friends or anyone in my life. The only person I had was my husband, and now that's gone. My mother and I have always had problems in the past, as she blamed my father's suicide on me, and even faked a suicide note from him saying it was my fault when I was 12. In a way I think this is her way of getting back at me from my dad, as she truly believes that I was the reason he decided to end his life, because I was an angry tween. My husband sees my mother as forbidden fruit, which is something that I believe men crave, which is why majority of the time they're the ones that cheat. I am now alone, and to be honest, have no clear direction for what's next for me. My husband and I agreed I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, which is something I wanted as well. I don't have any interest in college and have never considered what kind of profession would interest me. I've always just wanted to be a mom and a loving wife, and expected that to become my reality. I'm also not smart at all and have no idea what to do legally from here, so any advice on that would be great. I'm sorry this is so long, as a lot happened and I wanted to provide as much details to my situation as possible. I would never turn to social media in the past. I'd go to husband, but that's now changed, and I didn't have anyone else. Any advice or just thoughts would be appreciated. Update 1. I just wanted to say thank everyone that provided helpful feedback, and while I didn't get to everyone, I did read every comment. Now I feel as though I have to clarify some things. 1. The post is not fake, or I think I will be able to write better than what I wrote. The story also isn't fake. I really wish it was. This stuff does happen, and yes, I've gone to read it about it, as I don't have any friends or anyone I can trust, which leads me to my next point. 2. The reason I don't have friends is that when he was in 6th grade, my friends all dropped me when my dad killed himself. They all considered me weird for having a dad that died in that sort of way and gossiped about me, and it was considered social suicide to be friends with me. I also developed and had through body issues that were installed in me by my mom's boyfriend at the time, and this lasted from late middle school all the way up to early senior year. This led to me being in hospital a lot and missing out on a lot of school, which made it hard for me to make friends. When I was at school everyone had their groups, and so I would just eat alone. 3. I do not trust my auntie. My mom and her are very close. They both ran away from home together when my mom was 17 and she was 18. They were raised by strict Pakistani immigrants who were very abusive and cut my mother off when they learned she was with my father, who was white. Since they have only had each other, they will always put each other's best interests first. She also has a special needs sign in a small place, so living there would be a huge burden for her. I'm sorry I called myself mature for my age. I've just been told that by teachers, and pretty much all adults throughout my life since I was 5 years old. There was a point I was too great to head, however my mom decided to put me back, and the great people my age were in for a reason she still struggles to explain to me. 5. My relationship I get was not normal. He approached me at a mall while I was out and asked for my number, and he thought I was a lot older than what I was. He found out halfway through our first date I was 18 and still in school, and he wanted to end it there. However, I really liked him and said we could go for a second date, and we can decide together if we want to keep doing this. We both connected really well and opened up to each other like we'd never done to anyone else. We decided we'd start off as friends, and if we end up being comfortable we can pursue a relationship. I was the one who first told him I wanted a relationship. He was very hesitant and didn't want to because he was worried what people would think. He even told me no at one point, and a week later, we reconciled and he told me that he loved me, and he couldn't stand the idea of not being with me. The only red flag I could see was that he was divorced, and that he had a son he barely saw. However, that's due to his ex and son now living in a different state. My husband is a child of Albanian immigrants, and he claimed that him and his ex-wife only really shared that in common, otherwise there was no love between them. 6. I'm not going to college for the sake of going to college. I want to be a mom and that's all. However, I will look for a job to support myself in the meantime, as the flower shop will not be sustainable. Besides, I think I've lost that job as I haven't gone to 3 of missions as to why I haven't been in. Now finally the update. Basically a night after I posted to here, my husband came banging on our door, that he made a mistake and he was crying. He insisted that my mother was blackmailing him into being with her and that it was only supposed to be a hookup and he instantly regretted it. When I found out he panicked and didn't want to have no one, so agreed to be with me mom. I let him inside and he showed me all of the texts between him and my mom, and a lot of it was me mom telling him to come over, and if he refused she would threaten that she would spill it to me that they were having an affair. He told me he wants us to be together again, and he'll do anything for us home together. I told him I needed space for now, and that he needs to leave. He started to get very reluctant, and even started getting scary where he picked up a TV, and broke it and started punching himself. When I said that, I genuinely started to get scared and told him that I didn't want him doing something stupid, so I called his friend over, and he took him to his place to calm him down. The next morning I woke up to him cooking in our kitchen, and he made me my favorite breakfast. He told me that he wanted to surprise me with something he knew I loved. I told him I appreciated it, but he needs to leave and that if I were to forgive him it was going to take a long time, and that this wasn't going to be fixed overnight. He started crying again and he told me that he can't stay on earth if he knows that it's not with me. I'm not that dumb and know when I'm being manipulated with, so I told him to get out and that this will take time. That's when he got a frying pan and threw it at the wall. I pushed him out and locked the door. I told him to not come back, and I'll see him when I'm ready. Later that day my mother comes and screams outside my door that she knows my husband is here and that I'm stopping them from being together. I told her to leave, otherwise I'm calling the cops, and she did. However, when I walked outside later the day, it's clear she kept my car and tried to spell out a derogatory word against woman. I called the cops and they told them without footage they can't do anything about it. 2 hours after I called the cops she came back and again demanded that I let her in. I told her to go again, and that's when she tried to pick the lock to my front door, so I called the cops, and the moment she heard I was speaking to them she drove off. I started to feel unsafe where I didn't have anywhere to go, so basically I grabbed a bunch of clothes and necessities and took them to my car, and have been living in there since. I don't know what I'm going to do as of now and just hope that I find something. It hasn't been too bad and it's been sustainable for the past day and a bit, but obviously I can't do this forever. My husband did message me saying he came over and has been waiting at our house and is worried that I haven't returned. I told him that he shouldn't be there anyways because I told him I needed space, but I told him that I'm staying in my car till I decided what I want to do. He sent me a bunch of voice messages crying saying I'm torturing myself, and that if we're together he'll make sure to take care of me this time. I haven't responded to any of the voice messages directly. However, I am sending him just an update every 4 to 5 hours saying I'm okay. Just so he doesn't panic completely. My Andy hasn't contacted me really since I cried in her car, but as mentioned she has a lot on her plate, so I don't particularly blame her or anything. But that's the update. I'm homeless in a car and have no real direction. Lol. I did want to thank you all for the legal advice, and will hopefully find a time to get sorted on that. I also have an appointment tomorrow with a doctor about STD, so fingers crossed that all goes well. I'm sure it'll find something. However, for now it's a bit shit for me. Update 2. I don't know if you guys want another update after this one because I'm sure there'll be more that'll happen later on. However, I feel like this would practically become a diary. Lol. I'm glad to announce I'm not Ankar anymore, and I'm living in a woman's shelter. An hour after I posted my last update, a man was following my car, and he looked really nervous, like he was contemplating something. He was doing this for about 35 to 40 minutes. I even tested by going down no through roads and stuff, and he would follow me in and out of them. So I followed the advice you guys gave and went to a woman's shelter. I had to get questioned by someone and I essentially just explained that I didn't feel safe going home. My husband did smack my head while I was kicking him out, and he and my mother have been harassing me. They didn't really do much follow up after that, and they were really nurturing with settling me, and in a lot of the women introduced themselves to me. I haven't been in such a supportive environment before. In fact, this may sound dumb as it's a literal shelter, but I don't want to leave. I've made a lot of friends in the least 4 or so days, and I feel genuinely happy. I've made this one really good friend, who is the exact same age as me. She told me she's staying here as her stepdad is really violent and the amount of bruises she has is really saddening. It made me cry when started to explain to me how she received every bruise she got. We even got to talking about finding somewhere to live together, which has made me really excited. I've also made a lot of other friends, from a lot of diverse backgrounds and situations that really opened my world. As to my husband, he recently sent me a text that has made me sure that I don't want to ever see him again. He told me that if I didn't get back together with him I'd have another suicide on my hands. He knows how my mother faked the situation and everything and how much pain that put me through at a young age. I told him this was it, and that I'm done with him completely. He proceeded to call me a W like my mom, and that my dad would be rolling in his grave seeing how I turned out. He also confessed about 30 minutes after sending that text he'd been sleeping with other women as well as my mom, and said that they provided more for him than what he ever could. I simply told him to go ruin one of their lives instead. I won't lie and I feel completely hurt and manipulated that this man did this to me. Everyone will say I should have seen it coming, but I really thought we had something special. I was crying throughout all of this, and luckily the friends I've made at the shelter were there for me and took care of me. I believe if they weren't there with me throughout all of this I would have done something stupid. So thank you guys as well for encouraging the shelter, that really means a lot to me. My mom recently posted a story of her in a bikini and she wrote "Love hurts." I simply wrote back the laughing emoji. It's clear she's looking for not only male attention but sympathy. Knowing her, she will twist situation to make herself the victim and me as the bad guy, such as my father ending his life. I really think I'm done with this woman, as it's exhausting even trying with her anymore. My whole life she's been a victim, and the problem is everyone around her treats are like one. My auntie always says to me I shouldn't be too hard on her as she's been through so much. What about me? What about all the stuff she's put me through? Sure, she's had it hard, but why does it make it okay for her to make my life a living hell? Well, to make it even more perfect, she messaged me back after I sent the laughing emojis. She told me that she was allowed to mourn her relationship with my husband, and I couldn't make a sacrifice even if it meant her being happy, and how this is her first real connection since my dad. I sent back the laughing emoji again. She proceeded to post the interaction on her story and proceed to post a quote or something saying if only our kids understood that they can hurt us. I simply blocked her after that. Speaking of my auntie, also radio silence from her. I tried messaging her to tell her I was in a shelter just in case she was worried. However, before I even told her, she said she couldn't talk. She was at brunch. Considering she knows my situation, you would expect she would drop brunch to find out if I'm okay. She also didn't message me back after. I am tempted to go to my cousin's wedding though, which both my mother and auntie are attending, and exposing them to my conservative family. However, I am not that selfish to ruin someone's wedding just to get back at someone. I realized I would just be my mom doing that. I also reached out to my grandma in Tennessee, dad's side. I was hesitant in messaging her as I haven't seen her since I was 15 and we online messaged happy birthday to each other and that's it. I asked if I could stay with her and told her my situation. However, she said I could stay for a week. After that I'm on my own. She does have 3 of her sons still living at home and they all are big man child, so she said things are already dead around here, so me coming wouldn't help. Anyways, that's the update. I'm in the shelter and I'm planning to find a place with this girl. I'm also going to figure out legality some to me. I've just been really busy. I also had to reschedule my GP appointment to next week as just a lot has been happening. Thank you guys so much for reading this, and if anything really significant happens, I'll let you guys know.